sun is shining in the Styrian Mountains. It's a perfect day for a spot of GT Masters racing. We've just been enjoying an air display here at the Red Bull Ring. Isn't it good to be back, Dave Richardson?
Very much so, and what's also really pleasing is, as you can see, fans here in limited numbers, but fans are here nonetheless, and there you can see all the drivers really respectful of the fact that fans, which plays such a big part in motor racing. I mean, ultimately, it's what you and I do as a profession, isn't it? It's being motor racing fans. So, for the ADAC and for the drivers then to take part in this and to say, listen, we're so glad you're here, we appreciate it, and we appreciate the hardships you've been through to still follow our sport on those occasions when, of course, you've not been allowed here. And there have been plenty of those in the last year, regrettably, but...
Isn't it lovely to see all the drivers there, though? That's a great... I mean, the drivers appreciate it as much as the fans, because running through an empty stadium is never very atmospheric, and the drivers showing their appreciation as well. Really good, and it just gets us in the mood for the racing. Very pleased to say the weather is absolutely perfect. The rain-sodden Oschersleben, although we had great racing, getting wet is something that we're pleased to have consigned to the history books. The race is going to start in about 9.5 minutes. The sun is shining. The only issue with the weather is potentially wind. It's quite gusty around the place. Now you look at your pole sitter, Dennis Marshall for Rutonic Racing by Teke. He was delighted this morning with that pole position, a red flag coming out with about 30 seconds left as a result of a blown engine in the Maximilian Paul HRT Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan, and people on hot laps were unable to complete them. Marvin Kirchhofer starts on the front row. It's been a good weekend for the Callaway Competition Corvette, hasn't it?
Yes, very much so. It's a car that works really, really well at certain tracks. And the Corvette, as you've said, and said so eloquently as we look at the Dries Vanthoor WRT driver, of course, the team headed up by Vincent Voss. The Corvette is like a moving earthquake, isn't it? You always know when that's on the way up the road.
You feel it through the floor. That car there, the number 32, Dries Vanthoor, as we've mentioned, Dennis is the other driver. Charles Witt is having the weekend off. He's taking his exams, his university exams this weekend, so sensibly focusing on that.
So he's not having the weekend off then?
Well, he's not out on the beach, let's put it that way. Dennis Lind there. Dennis Lind, who is the nephew of Jan Magnussen, ex-Formula 1 driver, and cousin by dint of that, of Kevin Magnussen, who was a very recent Formula 1 driver. So good to see Dennis Lind here. Another driver subbing is Dennis Olsen, and Dennis Olsen is sitting in for Dylan Pereira in the KOS Team 75 Bernhard Porsche. Dylan Pereira, who's currently enjoying the World Endurance Championships out in Portimao, so he's subbing for him. We also have a driver change in the number 82 car. Max Hofer has taken over from Stein Scotthorst and will be driving alongside Tim Zimmerman. So a couple of driver changes there for this event.
We are running through the grid. We are with Albert Costa Balboa then in Lamborghini Huracan. Of course, very much a local car. And, Schubert Motorsport next on the run down the grid now. Really, really disappointing for Nicky Yellerly and the Jesse Krohn yesterday. Of course, Jesse Krohn didn't even get to drive the car yesterday, Brian. Explain why.
Well, Nick Yellerly was leading the race, looking good for potentially taking a win, and went wide onto the gravel. Did some damage to the suspension, we understand. That car retired to the pit lane. It was a no score, and it hurt because they were running second in the championship, and they have lost that second place.
Maxi Book we see next, and Maxi Book then driving the number 70 car with Raffaele Marciello, and driving for the Man-Filter team, Landgrel HTP Winwood Motorsport. My goodness, does that roll off the tongue. I'm going back to years in ADAC GT racing. You know, one of the liveliest combos I can recall was Maxi Book with Maxi Gertz. Formidable combination.
They were.
This is Patrick Niederhauser, Brian.
Yeah, Patrick Niederhauser, who was heading the timesheets for much of qualifying this morning, and of course he is a former champion, was in the Rutonic racing car that currently sits on pole position in the hands of Dennis Marshall. But Patrick Niederhauser finally ending up in, just looking at my grid list, and I've completely lost him. I'll come back to you on that. Where is
D10, thereabouts?
Something like that. No. P11.
No,
P9.
I was 1 out.
1 year out.
This is Marcus Winkelhock. In my opinion, Marcus Winkelhock has got the most menacing eye line of any of our drivers. And Marcus Winkelhock, look at that. You can see that through the visor of his helmet. Marcus is a great guy until you wrong him. And I have so many memories of Marcus Winkelhock taking issue with other drivers on occasions, and he's a fantastic guy and a fantastic racer, of course.
He did get together in the last race 2 at Oschersleben with the Callaway Competition Corvette, and as a result, Marcus Winkelhock has recorded 2 non-finishes. One yesterday, and one race 2 at Oschersleben, and a 17th place. So a bit of work to do there. Right, the engines are fired up. We're 1 minute away from the formation lap. I can't wait to get stuck into this race now. Just to remind you, the championship leaders won the race yesterday. That was Mikael Lammerler and Matteo Jaminet. They have won 2 of the 3 races so far this season, and they are such strong contenders. As we take a look at the grid, they're a little bit further down. It's Dennis Marshall who starts on pole position with Marvin Kirchhofer doing a great job. The Callaway Competition alongside. Row 2. And we will very shortly see Dries Van Tor pop up. There he is for Team WRT and local team GRT Grasser with Frank Pereira, who's going to be starting off with driving duties on the outside of Row 2. Row 3, Mathieu Jaminet, that's the car that's leading the championship SSR Performance alongside Mikael Lammermuller in the seat, and Albert Costa Balboa alongside on the grid, and he's sharing with Mirko Bortolotti, another from the local Grasser team. Nick Yellerly and Jesse Crone, doing the first stint in the Schubert Motorsport BMW, trying to make up for yesterday with Maxi Boog, who's sharing with Raffaele Marciello. Then Patrick Niederhauser, and he's from Phoenix Racing, Klaus Backler, and Sven Di Silvestro will be joining Klaus Backler. She was at the Indy 500 a couple of weeks ago. It was good to see her there. Jules Gounon and Max Paul, who had that blow up this morning that brought about the red flag. Unfortunately, put a time in before then. Pre-season championship favourites Mauro Engel and Clemens Schmid of Row 7, having a relatively quiet weekend by their standards, I would say, is Mauro Engel. The first ever winner in GT Masters, Christopher Haster, has Marco Holzer alongside on Row 8. Row 9, Daniel Karvitz and Christopher Means. And then Row 10, very shortly we will see it's Marcus Winkelhock, who we were just looking at, and Pierre Caffer, another car that is running by Rutronic Racing. Nick Biesover and Christian Engelhardt are on Row 11. And Row 12, Tim Zimmerman, and visiting Dennis Olsen, who's sitting in for Dylan Pereira. Norman Seidler and Sven Muller make up Row 13, and then the final place on the grid is Konstantin Skoll in the number 20 Zach Speed Mercedes. He's got an awful lot of work to do from there, as has Hendrik still. So the cars on their formation lap, getting heat into the tyres.
Manuel Reuter looking on then at the formation lap, and in the driver classification the points sit this way. Jaminet and Lammermuller on 62 points ahead of Bortolotti and Costa Balboa on 43. They are just 1 point ahead of Maxi Boog and Raffaele Marciello. Of course, lots of points to be gained in this race.
And the break that Lammermuller and Jaminet have this early on in the season has made everybody sit up and take notice. There is that yellow and black Porsche has been very rapid wherever it has gone, and I'll remind you again, 2 out of the 3 races this year so far have been won by that car. Can they make it 3 out of 4? They're starting from a little bit further back on the grid, but they're not exactly out of the running from 5th, so we're going to be keeping an eye on that. As you can see, air temperature perfect, 21 degrees, track temperature 38 degrees, a little bit of wind at the moment. The cars are now forming into side by side. Very shortly the safety car will duck off into the pit lane. Here we go then. It's Dennis Marshall with Marvin Kirchhofer alongside. The cars will need to be side by side as they exit turn 10. Is looking perfect. We're waiting for those 5 red lights to go off, and very, very shortly we will be ready to go racing. And the red lights staying on quite a long time at the moment. We are go. It is race 4 of the season for the ADAC GT Masters. It's Dennis Marshall and Marvin Kirchhofer who head side by side into turn 1. Dennis Marshall has that first position. The car spanning out 3 and 4 abreast. using the runoff area a little bit more, and that is the top spot, Mercedes heavy impact. This is going to bring out a safety car, possibly a red flag even. The number 22 car spearing off into the barrier, and of course that's Maro Engel at the wheel of that. So hopefully Maro Engel's all right. That was a big impact. There's another spinner as well. There's a car that's gone round towards the back of that pack. We're looking here at Maro Engel. Fortunately, he looks to be okay, although he will be thoroughly fed up because that is going to dent their championship hopes no end. We will no doubt see a replay. I have no doubt whatsoever we're going to see a safety car as well, and that has made a proper mess of that Mercedes, hasn't it, Dave?
Yeah, just got it from the back of my mind. Maro Engel going in very, very hard. You're absolutely right to pick that up. Thankfully, Maro is absolutely okay. Whilst that was going on, Kirkhofer had got ahead of Dennis Marshall, and he continues to lead Dennis Marshall now, who is relegated to P2. They're absolutely convinced we're going to get a safety car. It's not a red flag. It's not been called for yet. The wave yellow's come out now.
There it is.
And there is the notice of the safety car. That was inevitable. So Marshall then relegated to P2. Kirkhofer, Marshall initially didn't get as good a start as Kirkhofer, but Kirkhofer could not find a route into that P1 place because Marshall was defending, and then it was on the run up to turn 3 and maybe even through turn 3 where Kirkhofer did manage to get ahead of Marshall, but quite rightly all of our focus was on the errant Mercedes-Benz making its way into the barriers. There you can see. Thankfully, Maro is out. It's the right side of the barriers. It's perfectly okay. However, his Mercedes looks particularly second-hand, I'm sorry to say.
It does. You can see one of the wheels on the opposite side of the track. And let's have another look here. Of course, our focus is at the front, and it looked like Maro Engel had a reason he could get away. He was more abreast at one point and a little bit bunched up with some of the other cars around him. Into the corner he came. We're looking at the view from behind, pushing the distinctive pink, and you can see it was the Audi that moved across. I mean, that was Christopher Haase, I think, who moved across on him, and that was a heck of an impact, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have to make some barrier repairs there. That was very, very hard indeed going into the bench. Very pleased to see he's okay.
To be fair to Christopher Haase, he was hit by the red and yellow Audi alongside it.
That was Winkelhock, and I think that would have been, it was Marcus Winkelhock that was alongside Haase. See the wheel being torn off that Mercedes. I'm sure we saw it. It's very interesting. So, very much, I'd say, the innocent party in all of this as Maro Engel. And this is what happens when you qualify a long way down the grid. You're in the pack where all the trouble happens. You can see he sees a gap on the inside of Haase. Haase jinks across, and oof, that's going to hurt, isn't it? And that would have taken the air out of his lungs and given him a bit of a start. You might wonder why the safety car was slow in coming out. Let's just look again in a second. Yeah, I mean, Winkelhock was moving across. I think the stewards will deem that as a racing accident. A lot of cars in one place. They hold fire, putting the safety car out too quickly to allow the cars to space out on the track. Yeah. Because if you put a safety car out and the drivers are told into turn 3, they can bunch up.
Interrupted you.
As we thought would happen. That barrier's going to need repairing. I think it's going to be put the kettle on and take a seat because we're going to need to get that barrier repaired. Takes his hands off steering wheel.
Such a sensible move.
Broken thumbs avoided.
He's a brilliant driver, isn't he? And he's hugely experienced, and he knew what he had to do.
You can see Lucas Stoltz and the rest of the team looking. That's not Lucas Stoltz, actually, is it? But you see the teams looking on.
There's Jeffrey Schmidt looking on.
And they know that was a big impact. And that's big impact. So this is the view on board. Oh, this is not going to do the camera a lot of favours either, is it? And held on. I'll say credit to the camera builder, but that Mercedes is going to need a lot of work done on it before Zandvoort, which is the next round. You can see bits of the car strewn everywhere. The ferocity of the impact tore the wheel off.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Credit to the builders of the GT Masters cars, whatever brand it is. They're safe. The integral safety is not compromised.
No, absolutely. And the car is made to crumple and fold in all the right places, thus absorbing the impact and protecting the driver. But Maro Engel was just a passenger in that, and I don't think fault can be pinned to anyone in particular. Fortunately, I'm not the steward. I would not want to be the steward of any of these races. Dear me, and that's going to ruin your afternoon when that happens. And Mauro Engel, along with Lucas Stoltz, were pre-season favourites for the championship. There were quite a few pre-season favourites. Cars brought back onto the dummy grid and under the red flag conditions, but pre-season favourites, and they haven't had the best start to the year. A 5th and a 7th at Oschersleben, a 10th yesterday. That car is pretty second. I think it probably is, isn't it? That's an expensive one. And their championship is certainly going to be in a similar sort of state, really, in tatters, because no points from this race, and the distinctive BWT livery, which adorns that car for 2021, and BWT, of course, heavily involved in the ADAC GT Masters, changing the world sip by sip, and doing a great job. They've got involved with that team, and that is the Top Sport team, so that is the team looking on, and the rest of the team, and there's is that Engel going past
Mauro making his way back to the instant in turn one, no further action, that race instant. You called that exactly correctly. Now, this is the crucial point. Are they going to deem those barriers needing attention? Because if they do, that's going to delay this restart.
It'll be bring on the Potter's wheel. I'm sure that as they headed up towards turn 3, I saw another car spinning towards the back, but I may be wrong. I normally am, but I'm sure that if there was an incident, we'll see it on a replay. There is the man who, in all of that, jumped into the lead, and it seems that he would have picked up a slipstream heading up towards turn 3. Marvin Kirchhofer, a very experienced pilot in a very experienced car, or team car, the Callaway Competition Corvette. Dennis Marshall got a little bit mugged on the first lap, but that Audi is very rapid. And local boy Frank Pereira in 3rd place, championship leader Mathieu Jaminet in 4th, ahead of Klaus Bachler and Dries Vanthoor. And Dries Vanthoor losing a couple of places at the start of that. And there's Marcus Winkelhock, removing himself from the car collection Motorsport Audi. And it's so difficult for the drivers. You've got all that tension, all that build-up, the build-up that is part of the promotion of the racing, and then suddenly you're sat in the sunshine waiting for the race to restart, and you've got to control the adrenaline, really, haven't you? So work been done on the cars, and I believe the teams are allowed to do fairly minimal amounts to the cars under red flag conditions. But there is this gap. We've had no notifications as to when we might get restarted. There's the other car that was involved in it, and I searched Christopher Haase. Yes, it was. I'm just double checking. It was Christopher Haase at the wheel of that, but yeah.
I think it was completely a racing incident, absolutely. As you said. You know, there were 2 or 3 cars involved in that. You can see Tobias Schreiman there talking to Christopher Haase. They just got rattled together, didn't they? And there you go. I mean, it looks like a completely innocuous little touch, doesn't it? But when you're at that speed, Ryan, accelerating, and that's precisely what Mauro Engel was doing. And thankfully, Mauro is okay. That's the most important thing.
It's not the widest of circuits, is it? And when you're trying to get 27 cars all around, that noise just makes you shudder, doesn't it? When you're trying to get 27 cars all around that tight little corner, all at the same time, it's kind of inevitable you're going to get racing incidents. You just hope they're not going to be as big as that. Of course, under red flag conditions, the clock has stopped, unlike a safety car where the clock is running. So we're 56 minutes, just a little over 56 minutes left. Sadly, my language limitations won't allow me to report what they're saying.
Actually, it's very good English, but choosing to use native language is
absolutely, as you would not. Yes, indeed. But it's a lot of thinking and pondering about what happened. Tim Zimmerman has been shown as in the pits in the number 82 car. He started back in 23rd.
The DIY kit of parts that was Mauro Engel's car is being taken back to the paddock.
We've seen no footage of barrier repairs. It would be nice to think that that part of the barrier on the inside of the corner would not be. I mean, if it was on the outside, they would definitely have to replace it, wouldn't they? And I'm hoping that we haven't got a barrier repair, because that would obviously extend the delay significantly. The audience, good to welcome them back. People, isn't it good to see people at a racetrack again?
Gaffer tape being applied. It's one of motorsports' must-go-to tools in the toolbox, isn't it? Gaffer tape for errant panel work, and there you can see being applied by the car collection engineers there.
In all of that, Marcus Vinkoch did actually make up a place and is up to 20th, and Christopher Haase in 15th. So that is the barrier. It doesn't look like they're in any rush to do anything about it at the moment. They're looking at it. So what are they going to do with it?
I think you're right. I think they've looked at it, and you see, the crucial thing will be whether the integral structure of the barrier has been damaged, and I don't think it has.
There's a post there, isn't there, where the dent is?
Bent about a bit, but I think actually the safety that the strength that it needs to have is still there. And
I'm guessing they also take into account what is behind it, what damage it could do to a car or a driver if they were to collide with it in that condition, and it really looks as though it's been in a banger race, doesn't it? Right, so we're looking at that bit of fence, and there's a lot of arm waving going on. They're saying maybe they're looking just to
replace a part, maybe, because there's a little bit more frosty and urgency about the.
Suddenly they're running, so I think that's what the red flag was for. This retrieval probably could have been done under a safety car, but they needed to inspect that and potentially repair that. And there's Marcus Vinkoch walking across the pit lane.
And here is the incident again.
Oof.
It's just the speed with which Mauro knows I'm going in, lift my hand off the steering wheel.
Yeah, and very wise, because many a driver has damaged their hands by holding the steering wheel when it hits the barrier. But it's quite counterintuitive to take your hands off the steering wheel when a car is travelling, isn't it? And
he had about 1.5 seconds to make that decision.
Yeah, and that just shows how experienced Mauro Engel is. And that's certainly one of the biggest accidents I've seen him involved in GT racing. So it's Christopher Haase and Marcus Vinkoch talking about that incident, and you can see from the hand movements from Marcus Vinkoch that they're just discussing what happened.
Also there was Norbert Siedler,
right,
who, to my knowledge, was not involved in that.
I should think that Mauro Engel will have something to say about it all as well.
I think Mauro is such an experienced racer that he knows these things happen. It's just very unfortunate that he was caught up in that. Fortunately, Mauro Engel has walked away from it and doesn't appear to have any injuries or issues. So we will look forward to seeing Mauro and indeed Lucas Stoltz at Zandvoort in the second week of July. The rest of these drivers, we'll look forward to seeing them racing shortly. So we've lost Mauro Engel from the race. Tim Zimmerman is showing as in the pits. Now whether he's retired or whether there's an issue, I don't know, but that's one of the local cars from GRT Grasser in the pit lane. Marvin Kirchhofer, looking forward to seeing how the Callaway Competition Corvette can do off the front, being chased by Dennis Marshall and Font Pereira. That Lamborghini Huracan has looked very quick this weekend, hasn't it? In everything. Yes.
Albert Costa Balboa is in the other one.
Now, I think that
they're more worried about getting the Pirelli sign back up.
Well, you appear to be correct. Although, have they?
No,
that's somewhere else.
No, they wouldn't have done it that quickly. That's
somewhere else.
Yeah. So Pirelli, obviously key sponsors here, and it's good to make sure that their sponsorship is justified. And so the Pirelli ban had been put back up. Doesn't look. Here comes the heavy lifting machinery.
That looks like heavy duty machinery, right?
Yes, doesn't it? And whether that is leaving or arriving, I don't actually recognise that part of the circuit at the moment, but
I think that's on its way to where the barrier was damaged, I think.
And if that's the case, we might be up for a little bit more of a delay on this. So
I think potentially what they're going to do is cut away that piece of barrier that is, it is the same place, but the camera angle was such that, so what they're going to do, they're going to cut away the piece that was damaged and insert a new piece, I think. So this is not going to be the work of the moment, I'm sorry to say.
No. And we will be basking in the Styrian Mountain atmosphere. I still want to see what happened to the rest of the cars in all of this. So we've seen what happened to Mara Engel. So he goes spearing off there. Camera focuses on that. So it'd be good to see what else happened in the race. Although that was the most important. Right, here we go. No, that's still turn one. And 4 abreast on that section of the track. So we was going to end in tears, wasn't it? And the wheel goes bouncing across.
And that really has done a lot of damage to that car.
It has.
I wouldn't be surprised if that car is, the chassis is damaged and therefore it's written off.
Yeah. But the main thing is the driver is
absolutely
okay. And
completely right.
Any souvenir hunters out there looking for some bent pink panels will be suitably rewarded. So here we go again. Wait for the noise. Metal on metal. And this is looking back from said car. That's silenced afterwards. And there's that moment of realisation you're in trouble, and then it goes steering wheel, which is about to come.
So quick.
Yeah. And the driver very well protected there. You can see he's the only thing that he's hurt is his pride, and instantly his thoughts turn probably to the championship as well. Even bent the flipping windscreen wiper. I mean, phenomenal impact. And the car looking pretty demolished.
It's the best sight that we've seen.
Yeah.
Maro out of the car, perfectly okay.
So when they were heading up to turn 3,
I think that's where Kirko forgot Marshall.
I thought I'd seen some more action further back in terms of cars turning around, but it might have just been the fallout from this that we saw at the back of the picture. We need to see a replay of that. The fact we haven't seen a replay will probably indicate that with no major dramas, but that isn't going to buff out, and if this had been yesterday, it would not have been taking part today, I don't think.
No,
and,
I think that damage would have been too great, wouldn't it?
Is the insurance assessors taking photos already? That was a joke, Mark.
I realise that.
It's a sad state of affairs, and I have to explain my jokes now. But here we go, the fence repair team, and the heavy lifting gear is brought in, and we saw that in a GT4 race yesterday afternoon. Axel starting and making a big impact with the fence, and a pretty similar amount of damage. Whether they're going to replace it or whether they're going to stick a post behind it, who knows? We'll find out shortly. But all credit to these marshals who do a fantastic job. And are here not just in the sunshine, but when it's raining or indeed snowing. And there was an event here, not a GT Masters event, but there was an event here in 2019 that I was commentating at, and the event got snowed off. It was in April, and we got sent home because it was heavy snow, and that's how changeable the weather is here in the Styrian Mountains, as we look at the Dennis Marshall and who's that alongside him? Is that
Roger on the phone?
Is that Kimberly Schramm, the other one? I think it is. But yeah. So yes, the marshals are out here in the wind, in the rain, and in the snow, and yeah, you get a bit of everything here. But it's a gorgeous setting, a wonderful circuit. We haven't even told you about it yet. It's 4.318 kilometres around, which equates to about 2.683 miles. Has 10 turns, 7 to the right and 3 to the left. was bought by Dietrich Mateschitz in
That's service, isn't it?
2011, and yeah, that's nice. Bring me sparkling water out for everybody. I can do some of that myself, actually.
Keiner möchte Wasser haben.
With ice. I mean, that's,
Hier
yeah.
hätte das anders ausgesehen.
So that's the Callaway Competition Corvette team. The circuit bought by Dietrich Mateschitz. Before that,
What I love about this is Marvin Kirkhofer, leader of the race. He's got time to mix drinks for people. You know, that's lovely, isn't it?
it's a chilled out.
Not too full of himself.
No. Yes, as I was saying about the circuit, 96, it was redesigned by Hermann Tilke and renamed the A1 ring. Before that, of course, it was the Österreich ring, and we were only thinking about that when we were chatting earlier about the old Österreich ring that used to run through the trees, was built in 1969, and what a great circuit that was. And you can still see remnants of it now, can't you?
Yes, and there was talk. Whilst it was, I think it was more social media talk than anything official, there was talk about potentially some of the old sections of the track being brought into use again. So what they're having to do here is straighten out the barrier, because the impact was such that you can see there the safety road behind the barrier. You can see just how much the impact pushed the barrier into the safety road.
Yeah. So this is a different view. So we're looking back at the number 91 car. So that would have been from Christopher Mies. So this would be an interesting perspective. So the view from Christopher Mies going into turn 1, out of the corner, looking at the back of the Grasser Racing Lamborghini, and really fairly oblivious to what was going on. I mean, you'd never know it'd been involved in a major incident, would you? I'm not too sure. Oh, that's got to be Jesse Crone, Jesse Crone, isn't it? Yeah. So Maxi Book in the yellow Mercedes and Jesse Crone. We'll get a grandstand view of this in his rearview mirror, as he would, I would imagine. And there he goes in the background, and up towards turn 3. Good perspective. This is Martin Kirchhofer, who started second on the grid. You can see him up into turn 1, the drag race with Dennis Marshall. They made a little bit of contact out on that corner. Now this was the flat out section. I wondered if he got a slipstream, but he just out dragged him around turn 2, and it was just the grunt of that Corvette up towards turn 3 that had Dennis Marshall beat. And that's interesting. That was just a drag race on pure speed alone that got him that lead position. And you realise the Callaway Competition Corvette, the biggest engine on the grid, you realise quite how much grunt there is in that when it comes to a drag race. There's some other angles. Looking back at the number 11, that's Pierre Caffer. And it is just quite a scramble, the traffic of these cars. No, this is the one that's going to hurt. We see that one again. So it's interesting to see the Audi versus the Corvette. The Audi, which is a 5.2 litre V10 naturally aspirated engine, and the Corvette, which is a 6.245 litre, much bigger V8 naturally aspirated engine, and that grunt, despite the balance of performance, showing in the drag race as they head up the hill towards turn 3, as we look again. And incident in turn 1, track limits overtaking off track under investigation. I don't suppose that is relating to this particular incident, but the stewards are looking at some of the cars that really did go very wide on turn 1, and we may well see some penalties dished out here. The fence repairs are ongoing. They work away, and this event, which runs to a pretty tight schedule, we're sharing the bill with GT4, with TCR Germany, Formula 4 Germany, Porsche Carrera Cup. So there's a lot to squeeze in, and they need to get this done fairly quickly.
Yes, but in saying that, Brian, I think you and I would both testify to the fact that Konstantin Scholl's car is being taken off the grid.
So he was showing in 24, so he was towards the back.
Yeah.
And if you remember, he had qualified 27th and last on the grid, so it looks like there might be some issues there.
Yes, sorry, I was going to go on to say that however packed the schedule is, safety comes first.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. And look, there's been some damage
to Konstantin Scholl.
Now, I did say to you, I don't wish to keep repeating myself, there was an issue at the back of the grid that we saw as they were heading up to turn 3.
Yeah, you did.
I thought I saw a car rotating.
And perhaps it was Konstantin Scholl.
I'm not sure why we haven't seen any replays of it.
Might be that we didn't have the images of that because, to be fair to our camera crew, they would have been full on the Mauro Engel incident.
Yeah. But you can see the issues when you have a poor qualifying session and you are mid-pack and you are in that scrum on a track that's as narrow as this, and that scrum in the middle, if there's going to be an accident, it normally comes mid-pack, and qualifying on the front 3 or 4 rows where you can get clear of that kind of drama is so important. And Mauro Engel didn't have the best of qualifying sessions this morning, started way down in 13th place, so it was kind of almost exactly mid-order, but it was where there's all that jostling coming out of turn 1 and not a lot of track to escape onto, and you can see the result. But it doesn't look as though they're going to replace effective manuals. You think they are? I think they're undoing it.
Yeah, I think they're undoing the bolts now, Brian. I might be wrong, but we can only
right. Sorry, car 16 has to. That's only car 16 has to fall behind car 4, leaving the track with advantage. So that was that turn 1 situation. There's a couple of them they've got. So car 16, which is Clemens Schmid, will have to fall back behind car 4, which would be Patrick Niederhauser. Car 11 has to fall back behind car 13.
That's
Pierre Caffer and Jules Gounon. So both of them were deemed to have gained an advantage by leaving the track in turn 1. So that's what the investigation was. As we see Sven Muller. We've got no time yet. Normally we get a bit of warning when we're going to be getting ready to go about racing. We haven't had that yet, so I'm sorry we can't bring you cars in action at the moment. But as we've said already, safety is the primary factor here. The track has to be safe, not just for the spectators and the marshals, but also for the drivers. And we've seen that where cars have pierced fences, gone through fences that have been previously damaged. And the integrity of that fence is really important to protect the driver. Another one, car 75, has to fall back behind car 69.
So that's
Engelhardt and Marcus Winkelhock. And that's again the turn 1 situation. And 74 has to fall back behind 54. So that'll be Dennis Olsen, who has to fall back behind Norbert Seidler. So again, the stewards paying attention to track limits, and those two words, track limits, seem to haunt every racing series wherever we go at the moment. The only place it doesn't seem to haunt it is Indy 500.
So the cars then, as they're on the grid and as the red flag has been called for, probably some of those cars are in places that are going to have to be altered once we go back to a reformulation lap. This is a replay of the start and examples of where drivers did take advantage by getting a slingshot through that runoff area, and big slingshot for Mauro Engel then, who was spat into those barriers. It was deemed to be a racing incident where a couple of cars moved in on him. He could go nowhere, they could go nowhere, to be fair. Always someone is going to come out of that worse, and unfortunately it was Mauro Engel.
Some great shots of the cars going into the runoff area, but those are the ones that have all got to give the places back.
The irony being, Mauro was the only one of them that was within track limits.
Yes, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, without a doubt there. And naturally, the cameras turn towards that because it's a big incident, and Pirelli gets some advertising there, and we don't actually see what else happens. And you can see the number 92 of Matteo Jaminet giving, it looks like Dries Vanthoor a bit of a rub going into the corner as well. They have to really get their elbows out. This doesn't get any easier or any softer the more times you watch it, does it? It still hurts, doesn't it? And I should think that the TalkSport WRT team would be quite happy if we didn't see any more replays of that.
If you are just joining us and you've just seen that, I can assure you the driver of that Mercedes, as it makes contact with the barriers once again in replay, the driver, Mauro Engel, is perfectly okay. He's walked away from the car with no problems whatsoever. Sorry, I was just moving my chair then. And Mauro is perfectly okay, and I'm sure actually he will have probably gone off to the medical centre just for checks, but he walked away from the car and then hitched a ride on the back of a moped, so I would suggest that he's perfectly okay. The car, however, altogether different.
That is not oh no, it is, sorry, it is. We're looking back at an earlier Porsche Carrera Cup race. I'm entirely sure. Oh, it's good to get some highlights from some of the other races, because we've got not a lot of racing to watch at the moment. So that was Christopher Zirkling in the earlier Porsche Carrera Cup race.
Who did a J turn any stunt driver would have been proud of.
Absolutely, Terry Grant, eat your heart out. And they got the T Josie on the 92 car, and keeping that cool, and keeping the rays of the sun out. The number 19, Franck Pereira, who is currently showing in 3rd place. This race, when it does get going, we'll start behind the safety car in single file. We won't have another rolling start. So that's probably a blessing in disguise, because we don't have to get that field around that corner again, all in a bunch.
So there you can see, now that's the damaged Konstantin Scholl car. Now, you were the one that picked up on the fact that there was something going on behind the Mauro Engel incident.
Yeah.
And this may well have been, or this particular car and driver combo may well have been involved in that.
Well, particularly as he started stone last, and
he appears to have lost half of
the car,
yes.
So has clearly got involved with somebody. Looking to see if there's another car that's got any damage on it, and we see driver walking down the pit lane. That is, go on, tell us who that is. No, you can't.
Sorry, I was looking at the... and I was not. I was looking at the timing screen to see if we've got any indication yet as to... Because ordinarily, the man in the tie who's up on the barriers normally makes a prediction as to how long the repairs are going to...
That's Kimberly Schramm, by the way. I'm just seeing your ID.
And we've got no indication yet on how long those barrier repairs are going to take.
No.
Even a prediction from race control.
Really sorry, we can't bring that to you. Oh, well, there we go. So I don't see any reason why we should know before the drivers. So the 10-minute board has been shown. Session will be resumed. We have a time at 14:13 local time, so 10 minutes, and we will be back underway again. So that is not as bad as we feared it might be, which is great news. An altogether traumatic start to race 2 for the ADAC GT Masters here at round 2 at the Red Bull Ring. It is the 4th of 14 races in this 2021 season that has been a little bit delayed getting going than what we would normally expect. Normally the season would start in April, but the ADAC deliberately timing the dates when they planned it at the end of last year for the season to start a bit later to give us the best possible chance of getting free of this horrible pandemic, which has been blighting all of our lives for the last year and a quarter or so. So it is round 2. Round 3 will be 19th of July at the newly revised Zandvoort circuit, and can't wait to see that. On your birthday, we will celebrate there with a special drink at Zandvoort, and we're looking forward to seeing the banked corners, the new Arie Luijendijk turn. Of course, the circuit has been remodeled in anticipation of Formula 1 returning, and that delayed return means that the GT Masters are going to get a run in before the F1 boys do, boys and girls. So, quick save. Then in August we head to the Nürburgring for round 4. Then it's the Lausitzring, which has returned to the GT Masters calendar after a few years off for round 5. That's in September. October, we're at the Sachsenring, one of my personal favourites.
Yeah, you love that place, don't you?
They run anti-clockwise there as well. I just love the undulation, the big waterfall that they run down. Just a great circuit. And then it all comes to a close. The traditional season closer has returned. It was Sachsenring for a couple of years, but we're back to Hockenheim for the season closer in October, which feels like a long way away, but will probably be with us before we know all about it.
You are probably right. What a packed season it is, and an enjoyable season as well. ADAC GT Masters, we get the thumbs up. We're about to go back racing again. As you can see, the race 2 restarts in exactly 7.5 minutes time. So drivers then re-prepare themselves to go off racing once again. Credit to our team there. What they're doing, making deft use of some concrete. Look to crikey, that nearly fell down a rabbit hole. Deft use of some concrete to reinforce the barrier there. And well done to them all. Marcus Finkelhock there, you can see, preparing to get back into the car. He, of course, was involved in that situation, regrettably with Mara Engel, and also involved was
Christopher
Haase. Sorry,
it's been a long afternoon, hasn't it? The sun's got to us.
It's Christian Engelhardt that's there talking to him. That's what I was concerned with.
Oh no, you've been on the Austrian beer, haven't you?
I wish. Really, I do. So, session being resumed then in 6.5 minutes from now.
And we will be ready to see some racing again a little bit later than anticipated. Just to remind you, our leader was Marvin Kirchhofer. He out-dragged Dennis Marshall. It was Audi versus Corvette, and it was pure grunt that got him in front up the hill towards turn 3.
What is grunt?
It's what these cars produce. Frank Barrera for GRT Grasser is in 3rd place. Mathieu Jaminet in the number 92 car is in 4th place in the SSR Performance Porsche. And of course, Jaminet, who comes into this race as the championship leader along with Mikael Ammermuller. Klaus Bachler in P5, Dries Vantort in P6, another local team. The Grasser team occupies 7th and 8th. That's Albert Costa Balboa and Clemens Schmid. Maxi Buch in P9, Jesse Krohn in 10th. Then it's Christopher Mies, Patrick Niederhauser, Marco Holzer, Pierre Kaffer, Daniel Karlovitz, Jules Goulon, he's a long way down in 16th. Christian Engelhardt in 17th. Dennis Olsen subbing for Dylan Pereira in 18th. 19th place, Christopher Haase. 20th will be Marcus Winkelhock. Robert Seidler in 21st. Max Paul, who had all sorts of troubles in qualifying this morning, blew the engine, brought the red flags out, and has subsequently dropped back in this race as well, qualified 12th. So Max Paul down in 22nd, and he'll be handing over to Hugo Sasser, so a lot of work to do from there. Another driver, uncharacteristically out of position, Sven Muller, in the Precoat Herbert Motorsport Porsche, down in 23rd. Konstantin Skoll, well, we saw him in the garage. He's showing in 24th, and Mick Wieshofer in 25th. And it's looking like 2 retirements. Tim Zimmerman and Mara Engel. Not a clue what's happened to Tim Zimmerman. We have no view of what's happened with him. And he's just showing in the timing screens as being residing in the pits. That might, of course, all change once these cars get rolling. And, of course, Mara Engel, who had that big accident that brought about this red flag. And that red flag will be removed in a little over 4 minutes. And these cars will be firing back into life.
We, of course, not knowing what's happened to Tim Zimmerman, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, Brian, if he's had to come in and seek some repairs to the car, that he could restart from the pit lane.
Absolutely, and he might have had something to do with the missing front wheel on the Konstantin Skoll car. I mean, if it's not on camera, we will need to check out the news feeds at a later stage and find out what has occurred there. You're looking at the number 74, Dennis Olsen, and it's great to welcome him here as a guest this weekend. As Dylan Pereira, who's in the World Endurance Championships this weekend, doing a good job there. But Pereira will be back in the car at Zandvoort, and will be sharing the driving duties with Janis Fitcher. And of course, Janis Fitcher will be in that seat a little later on this afternoon, all being well. Looking at that man there, Jesse Krohn, along with co-driver Nick Yellerly, came into this weekend just a handful of points off the championship lead.
P4.
4 points off at the time, now down in P4 as a result. Nick Yellerly went wide and onto the ground. Well, that appeared to break something on the car. It's reported as suspension damage and retired to the pits. And we've always said that Jesse Krohn and Nick Yellerly look very similar when they've got their helmets on. It was really hard to tell them apart. That is Jesse Krohn in the car. So they've got a lot of work to do, and particularly as they're right down in 12th place at the moment. So they need to get their championship back on track. They won here at the Red Bull Ring this event last year, the 199th race. The 200th race last year was won by the MRS GT racing team, and Jens Klingman and Eric Johansson were at the wheel on that particular time. And that was, say, the 200th race. Unfortunately, Mick Wiesoper is unlikely to be troubling the leaders today, as he is showing in 25th place and the last of the running cars. Now, Konstantin Skoll, he's still showing as running, but we saw him in the pit, so I'm not entirely sure that will happen. So we're 2 minutes to go before we are back racing. It's been a long old stoppage after Mara Engel got together with Christopher Haase and Marcus Winkelhock and made heavy impact with the barriers. Red flags came out in order to not only remove the remnants of that Top Sport Mercedes, but also to repair the barrier.
So the order then, as we restart this race, which is for sure going to be behind the safety car, it's going to be Marvin Kirchhofer, Dennis Marshall, Frank Pereira, Matteo Chamonix, Klaus Bachler, Dries Van Tor for the WRT team, then it's Albert Costa-Balba, Clement Schmidt, then Maxi Buch and Jesse Krohn then running in P10, because the race brought under the safety car initially, then the session was red flagged, and as Brian has quite rightly said, we are exactly 1 minute away from the race restarting. A how-long race, of course, with that mandatory driver change pit stop to come within the middle of the race as well. So it is down to the minute now. The minute board is held up, and now the drivers have got to get themselves back into position, Brian, mentally, in terms of getting this race underway again.
The timing screens are reporting there was an incident at turn 3, but there will be no further action. And again, that just backs up what we were saying. We saw something going on, and the stewards have looked at it. It's not on camera, clearly nothing too significant, although if it's sent Tim Zimmerman to the garage and Konstantin Skoll, then maybe it was significant to them. But there we go. We are now got engines running. The ground is shaking once again. The birds have fled because of the noise. We look at Sven Muller, who's got a lot of work to do, and he is down in 23rd position. That wasn't Sven Muller, that's Jesse Krohn, isn't it?
That's Sven Muller.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. The eye line of Jesse Krohn and Nick Yellerly is almost identical, isn't it?
I did say Sven Muller on the screen.
I did say Sven Muller.
No, that's right. I tried to question my own sanity there. Now we're looking.
So you should.
I do quite regularly. We're looking at Marvin Kirchhofer in that Callaway's competition Callaway with no S competition Corvette. That is such a wonderful. What if they'd like to give me a little spin around the track and that, I wouldn't mind. Beautiful car. Beautiful car. It's Marvin Kirchhofer who leads the field away, looking back at Dennis Marshall in the Audi, and we saw grunt for grunt that the Corvette definitely won the drag race up to turn 3, and that will be sobering for Dennis Marshall. Of course, cars very different, but the balance of performance levelling them out, and it might be that Marshall has more of an advantage in the windier section, which will be sectors 2 and 3 of the circuit, and then that Corvette with all that horsepower along the pit straight and up towards turn 3.
Penalty zone box that we could see there. Now, the reason for the penalty zone box is, as Brian has so deftly explained in the past, where sometimes a driver might get a drive-through penalty for an indiscretion which really doesn't deserve a drive-through penalty. Rather than doing that now, what the ADAC are doing is you've got a drive-through penalty box at no more than 60 kilometres per hour, which does take the sting out of the race for a driver that is affected, but it's less damaging as a penalty than a drive-through. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, and it worked very well in harsher, Steben. I have to say it's an added penalty here because it's on the exit to turn 3. So the driver, to hit that penalty box, will need to reduce their speed going into turn 3, or they're going to overshoot that box because it is on really tight into that corner on the right-hand side. So we've seen it being used this weekend in various classes. Drivers will be looking to avoid doing that, as we see Marvin Kirchhofer backing the field up. He becomes effectively the safety car as the real one peels off into the pit lane, and he now takes control of the race, and he wants to catch Dennis Marshall napping, and that looks exactly what he's done. You saw the car burst into life, and he has opened up a big gap already. Marshall did not anticipate that well. We are back at last under green flag conditions for race 4 of the season for the ADAC GT Masters. It's Marvin Kirchhofer who leads them across the line. You can see Matteo Jaminet trying to generate some heat in those tyres, who's running in 4th place ahead of him for Pereira.
So the top 4 then make their way around turn number 1 with the car single file now. Less chance of an incident like we saw at the start of the race because the cars are all single file. They're not side by side each other, so they all head up to turn number 3 with Kirchhofer already beginning to stretch his legs, and Dennis Marshall under a bit of pressure there from Frank Pereira and also Matteo Jaminet. Then it's Klaus Backler, Dries Vanthoor, he's running out of the top 10.
And you saw Maxi Buch and Jesse Krohn running side by side into the corner, and it's Maxi Buch who's on top in that one. He's in P8 and Jesse Krohn down in P9. But a bit of a challenge there. There's also a challenge for 3rd place from Pereira, having a little look on the inside of Dennis Marshall, and that is the number 3, Marco Holzer, challenging Daniel Karlwitz. Karlwitz, a very experienced GT racer, so Karlwitz trying to make that oust Audi as wide as possible as he defends that position, but that is down in 14th place.
So then the first real lap of racing following the formation lap of the behind the safety car as the race resumed. Kirchhofer leading, and it's got something like 4-5 tenths now over Dennis Marshall, who's holding on to P2 ahead of Frank Pereira and Matteo Jaminet.
3 cars did not make the restart. Clearly, Mauro Engel was never going to do that. Tim Zimmerman and Konstantin Skoll are all in the pits. So that's 3 cars that we've lost. That brings us down to 24 cars making the start, and that's plenty enough around this tight little circuit, it has to be said. Here we go, flat out around turn 2. It's a corner by name, but not by anything else. The drivers take it absolutely flat out. This is where they get a slipstream coming up this steep hill, and it's a lot steeper than it looks on the telly. Up towards turn 3, pick up the slipstream, best overtaking opportunity on the circuit.
So running in super slow-mo then in replay. You can afford to take some of that curve on the inside, and I have to say that the racing stewarding team are taking a very liberal view of using this runoff area on the exit of turn 1, Brian.
More so than normal. You can see how much rubber is out there. Track limits always seems to be an issue wherever we go. Haven't seen too much in the way of track limits. We saw those 4 cars that were altered on the restart as a result of overshooting turn 1, but on the whole they've been pretty tolerant of the drivers using the runoff area. There are bollards, and the drivers are required to go on the track side of the bollard and not go around the other side of the bollard, and those are on turns 9 and 10. There is one of the bollards there out of 10, and you can see the drivers having to tuck in really tight to avoid that little orange bollard. Here we go across the line. Marvin Kirchhofer leads the way. His lead 7/10 of a second from Dennis Marshall.
Yes, so P1, P2, all the drivers across the timing line, putting another lap in the book of real racing then. And who is making moves here? Well, the top 4 are beginning to break away just a little bit from Klaus Backler. He, of course, is under threat now from Dries Vanthoor. Here comes Dries Vanthoor in the red and white Audi then. Is he going to try and nip underneath the Klaus Backler car now? It's the battle that's going on for P5, and we can see that from being on board with Costa Balboa on the Lamborghini Huracan, which is where we are right now, making that run down to turn number 4. Costa Balboa in that P7 place.
You can see Dries Van Tor up ahead. He's a young driver who has made big improvements year on year and really is a challenger now in that car. And he's giving the veteran Klaus Bachler something to think about. We've got to get used to Bachler in a Precoat Herbert's Motorsport Porsche. And he's moved to that team this year along with Simone Di Silvestro. And Dries Van Tor is putting the pressure on him as we see more changes in position. And that is the number 3 car. Daniel Karvitz once again on the outside of the Zaxby Mercedes. Marco Holzer also getting involved, and it's Jules Gounon, of course, who's in the Mercedes. So to the inside goes the number 3 Daniel Karvitz car. So Karvitz on a mission moving forwards.
Gounon very brave there, all the way around the outside, holding on to that. It's a long way around there, isn't it? And here we can see another challenge going on. Jesse Krohn on the inside. And on board with Jesse Krohn we go now, and there you can see a little tap coming from the Maxi boot car in the black Mamba, no, yellow Mamba, isn't it?
It is yellow, indeed yellow, and that is, yes, that's 8th place. That BMW has always been very strong around the Red Bull Ring, and Jesse Krohn, who will be handing over to Nick Yellowly, will be a while later on, started on pole position. Nick Yellowly did yesterday until that incident saw his race terminated, but the BMW has proven itself to have, we use that word again, the grunt around this very fast circuit. It is the fastest track on the ADAC schedule, and the BMW really suits it well, as does the Corvette C7, which is leading the race. This is the view on board with Jesse Krohn. You can see him lining up Maxi Boot, who was in 8th place. And again, talking about the grunt of the BMW, he out-drags him past the pit lane and up towards turn 1. It is just a drag race, and the BMW has the legs on that Mercedes.
And what he did, he positioned the car absolutely perfectly. He needed the inside line. He knew once he got the inside line that he would have that so-called G.
Oh, that is Pierre Caffer in the gravel. This is going to cause a safety car. This has got to. He is stranded. I think this race has got another twist about to come. What's happened to Pierre Caffer? It looks like
on the outside.
All on his own. Doesn't look like he's had a puncture. And he has gone spinning into the gravel. Safety car is out. So the race will be once again brought under caution. And the lead that Marvin Kirkhope had built up will become nothing. And Dennis Marshall will once again have the opportunity to challenge him. But the safety car will be required to remove this number 11 car, so yet another issue in this race. It's turning into quite a soap opera, isn't it?
Of course, it won't be the safety car that will be removing the number 11 car. My colleague was jesting that the safety car called to enable the removal of the stricken number 11 car of Caffer, but hopefully it won't be too long. It's literally putting a tow rope on that, isn't it, and pulling it out of the car quickly. Because we want to get on with this.
We want to get racing. Another new thing that's been introduced this year by the ADAC for GT Masters is that full course yellow, and that will be used instead of a safety car if we have an issue when the pit window is open, because drivers are so often very seriously advantaged or disadvantaged when you get a safety car, and some drivers have pitted and some haven't. So now, if there is an incident that would normally call for a safety car and the pit window is open, they will, wherever possible, go for a full course yellow, which is effectively what you would see in another series as a virtual safety car. Bring every car down to 80 kilometers an hour. Nobody closes the gaps, nobody opens up the gaps, and that allows them to address whatever issue they have.
Well, they're the stricken Pierre Caffer, who's decided not to get out of the car and assist in any way at all. Pierre Caffer will be taken back. You can see all the way around the gravel traps there are tarmac runoff emergency roads as well, which actually really aids recovery. And actually you'll see sometimes that when cars go into the gravel trap, if they keep their foot in, that they can make their way through the gravel almost and onto those safety roads.
Yeah, we've seen that a few times. It's keeping the momentum going, but of course the moment you come to a stop, you are going to get beached. You saw some graphics popping up just now with some championship standings and in other categories. So Marvin Kirkhope leads the way in this race. We have a junior championship as well. Dennis Marshall is the leading junior driver, and we have a trophy category, more of a gentleman's category, with Frank Pereira, who's third on the track, and he's leading in that category.
Interesting in the championships, as you say, you've got Kirkhope leading the race, then you've got Pete 2. It's Marshall who's actually leading for the young riders, and then Pereira for the more elderly,
more senior.
Yes.
Okay, safety car is in on this lap. The lights are off, and very shortly, Marvin Kirchhofer is going to back the field up. Now, we've seen how much horsepower that Corvette has got, so by rights, he should be able to leave Dennis Marshall. He did catch him a little bit napping out of 9 and 10 on the last restart.
Yes.
I had to say, keep an eye on Frank Pereira, because that Lamborghini is pretty fast around here, and also Matteo Jaminet in 4th place.
Yeah, we know how good that Porsche is, don't we?
We certainly do, and it's a case of who's going to stop the Porsche. And Martin Kirchhofer becomes the de facto safety car once again. He backs the field up. Everybody is nose to tail, want to close up those gaps, because this is a great opportunity to make up places, also a great opportunity to lose a load of places. But Marvin Kirchhofer now controlling the pace of this. He's not allowed to back the field up too much by slowing and speeding up, but apart from that, it's his discretion, and he's done it again. Dennis Marshall, whether he's just got nothing in terms of horsepower to match that Corvette out of the box, or whether Kirchhofer has just put his immense experience to good use, whichever way, he crosses the line, and he has already got nearly 4/10 over second place Dennis Marshall, and Marshall is coming under pressure, as we thought, from Frank Pereira already.
So the cars rounding turn 1 then, they go through this little kink, which perhaps they'll reclassify as turn 1A. They go to turn 2, which is about where we are now, which is that tiny little kink before braking for turn 3 now. Dennis Marshall under pressure from Pereira, and also from Jaminet and backward, and for Balboa.
Kirchhofer having the best possible start here. Here comes the BMW. I'm keeping an eye on that, because Jesse Krohn in P8 and Albert Costa Balboa. Right, here we go. Frank Pereira making a challenge on second place. He's just looking at the moment, filling his mirrors. He wants to get through quick, because if Matteo Jaminet closes in on him, any move he makes that doesn't stick will see him relegated a further position.
Dries Vanthoor is looking very lively as well, trying to find a way past the cars ahead of him, which are Klaus Packer and, of course, Matteo Jaminet. He's in the red and white Audi. You can see there, currently running in that P6 position. That's Dries Vanthoor, who is pressuring the Klaus Packer car ahead of him.
We've got to wonder, without wishing to spell doom and gloom for the rest of them, what these drivers are going to have for Marvin Kirchhofer this afternoon, because that gap he's opened up already is very significant, and he is pulling away from the rest of the field. That powerful Corvette is doing exactly what it needs to do, and suits this track absolutely perfectly. The rest of the cars come through in a single file. You can see a gap behind Jesse Krohn, in front of Jesse Krohn. That is Albert Costa Balboa, who's taking a little look.
Absolutely, and so Dries Vanthoor in the middle here. You can see the Dries Vanthoor car through our onboard camera. We are behind Dries Vanthoor, and this is the Lamborghini Huracan then of Costa Balboa on the run-up. Here we go through turn 2. Now we head towards turn number 3. Balboa takes a look at the outside of Dries Vanthoor. We go back on board with Albert Costa Balboa then. This is a great shot. Of course, he shares the car with Mirko Bortolotti, and up his trumpet now, he has got Jesse Krohn in that BMW that we know is very, very good here. Jesse Krohn, of course, will be handing over to Nick Yellerly when it is time, and it's not far away from the pit window opening, so lots going on behind the leading 4 or 5 cars, Brian.
And this is the long game. We've got 41.5 minutes of racing plus 1 lap ahead of us. Of course, the mandatory pit stop, which will come in about 6.5 minutes time. Every car will have a 10-minute window in which they need to visit the pit lane, and there will be a mandatory stop and driver change. That stop will need to be a minimum of 70 seconds from pit entry to pit exit. So strategically, a lot to think about whether to bring the car in when it's in traffic, therefore trying to get an undercut, whether to come in early or late in the window. All this strategy yet to play out.
Christopher Mees has made his way past Maxi Book, and that is for P9 and P10 as we follow the cars now across the timing line. Marvin Kirchhofer then extends his margin to 8/10 over Dennis Marshall P2, then is Frank Pereira. Albert Costa Balboa we're on board with here now in the number 63 car. It's running in P7, chasing down Dries Vanthoor, but for the moment Dries Vanthoor seems to have the measure of it. But this is where the grunt, as Brian would say, of this particular car comes into full effect. Through turn 2 now, up towards turn number 3. He goes to the outside of the WRT Audi. But you can see there, Dries Vanthoor on the inside of Klaus Bachler. This is 4P5, and I think Dries Vanthoor has done this because he's going to have the inside line going into turn number 4. This could play to the advantage of Costa Balboa as well, who'll try and go through the same hole that is being created here by Dries Vanthoor. Klaus Bachler trying to hold on around the outside. Here comes Dries Vanthoor, but now if Bachler can hold on here, he'll have the inside line for the next turn. Has Dries Vanthoor done enough? He tries to take a slingshot. Bachler, great driving from both of them here. Absolutely side by side, and Bachler stays ahead.
Great driving, and now Dries Vanthoor coming under pressure from Jesse Krohn, but as you say, Balboa as well. So this is quite a scrap. Dries Vanthoor, who had a torrid time at the Nürburgring 24-hour race last weekend, wants to make amends for that and put it in his distant memory. He is fighting Klaus Bachler for all he's worth for that 5th place, almost losing to Albert Costa Balboa at the same time.
And that is the trouble, isn't it? You go for an overtake, and this is what he did here. Put himself on the inside of Klaus Bachler. Bachler was having none of it, and of course all of it played into the hands of Costa Balboa, who we know with that Lamborghini Huracan based very locally here. It's got the torque, it's got the power, hasn't it? And Dries Vanthoor, in trying to attack, left himself very, very vulnerable, and he actually loses out there. Great shame, but great driving for trying to have a go, and that's where Dries Vanthoor probably lost out. Now Klaus Bachler did sideswipe him slightly, didn't he?
And that is what allowed the Costa Balboa car screwed. So there was a little bit of contact.
Our team getting that replay in just so that we can absolutely understand what happened.
Yeah, brilliant. Great driving. This is exciting stuff, isn't it? You saw a little bit of a shot then of Max Paul coming together with Sven Muller. That was further back. That was in 20th and 21st place. No harm done by the looks of things. Here we go again. Dries Vanthoor to the inside of Klaus Bachler. Bachler has gone into the gravel trap. I call a safety car because Bachler is out at P5. He's stranded in the gravel. Simone Di Silvestro is not going to get a drive this afternoon because that car is beached and going nowhere.
Well, what happened there was, it was Dries Vanthoor trying to come back at Bachler, wasn't it? Dries Vanthoor at one point was on the grass, Brian.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, was that a little bit of payback there?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, because Bachler did squeeze him previously, and pit stop window is going to be postponed. Just so you know. Only has been postponed, we might as well. So it was due to be at 35, the pit window. That has now been delayed. We'll let you know when that will open. But yes, you did wonder whether there was a bit of payback there. Fortunately, that Porsche was kept out of the fence, so that keeps the damage down. But Klaus Bachler, and you can see, well, Bachler had squeezed Vanthoor onto the grass. Cut him across. Vanthoor really had nowhere to go. The stewards will be looking at that, and if they feel as though there is any punishment to be handed out. I mentioned earlier, Dries Vanthoor last week at the Nürburgring 24-hour race was one of the favourites and ended up under the fence after a big accident very early on in the race, and he was absolutely distraught. And you do wonder, when you have something like that, you go to the next race almost saying, right, I've got a point to prove, I want to put this behind me. Dries Vanthoor has looked like a man on a mission all weekend. Yesterday he got a P5 in race 1, and apparently is showing in P6, and if the stewards don't penalise him for anything, then looking good for a points haul.
I'd really love to see that from another camera angle, because he was being squeezed. He was being squeezed. Now, the incident between cars 32 and number 7 is under investigation. So Sven Stopper, race director, is looking at it.
He's had a busy day.
He has had a busy day. This is Sven Muller in the Porsche, who is currently running quite a long way down. 20th, my memory serves.
Yes, he is in 20th. So, Sven Muller, who got together with Max Paul a little bit earlier, out of the points at the moment. He's got a lot of work to do there. Another of the many pre-season favourites for this championship, and was very strong in last season's championship, but currently not going to be scoring any points unless he can make some progress from there.
My prediction is that this will be the last lap behind the safety car. I think they will have put double Klaus Bachler car, and we will be able to go back to racing at the end of this lap.
And I reckon
they'll do a lot of things, and most of them have been wrong.
Welcome to my world. On the terms of rubbish predictions, I think the pit window will probably be delayed about 5 minutes. I reckon it will come at about 27:30-ish on the clock.
To try and recreate my glory, I did think they were going to tow the car out. Now they've decided they're going to lift it. It might take a few moments longer, but the trouble is when you try and drag the car out, the splitters on these GT Masters cars act like a snow plow, well, gravel plow in this situation. Of course, you end up trawling all the gravel through. Now, I'm assuming Backler is out of the car.
Yes.
I have seen drivers stay in them and they've been covered.
Well, why wouldn't you? That gravel's deep to have to walk through, isn't it? I mean,
a roller coaster ride on the end of a tractor.
You saw Simone Di Silvestro in the pits in the garage earlier, and she's frustrated because she wanted to get a drive in that. Yesterday, 20th place out of the points was all they could manage. Simona, there she is there. She featured in the Indy 500 2 weeks ago, was in the battle to get into the race, went down to the wire. She started at the back of the Indy 500 and got quite a considerable distance into it before retiring, but good to see some representation across the water in the USA. Simone Di Silvestro, and you were about to say something about Christopher Mies, were you?
No, just weaving from side to side, and the reason for that is, of course, under a safety car, obviously you reduced your speed to about 2/3, perhaps even less than what you've got, and therefore weaving from side to side is critical to try and kick some temperature into the tyres, using the brakes quite aggressively as well, because the heat generated from the brakes dissipates out of the rims and onto the tyres. So the motocross by land motorsport driver Christopher Mies, who of course can see the back end of Jesse Krohn in that BMW.
And Christopher Mies, who is a former champion in GT Masters, as we see the safety car is due in on this lap. Christopher Mies sharing with Ricardo Fella, another very strong partnership. This series is just full of absolute quality drivers. Safety car is in on this lap, so once again, Marvin Kirchhofer will probably show quite how much acceleration there is in the good driving technique there. Going to show how much power there is in that Corvette C7 when this pulls in, because I expect he's probably going to leave Dennis Marshall again. There's Simone Di Silvestro looking on, and explanations to be had. Klaus Backler, it's Robert Renauer, sorry, who's the other of the Precoat Motorsport Porsche drivers. And of course, he'll be taking over his Sven Muller. Two of the cars that look identical, confusing us no end as if that were needed. Right, pit stop window will be 14:38. So, oh, good grief. So not too complicated then. So that is in about 2 minutes. The pit stop window will be opening. So about 2 minutes time. So when the clock gets to around 30, about halfway through, the pit stop window will be open for 10 minutes. When every driver will need to come in. Right, here we go. Deja vu. I feel like we've done this a few times before today.
Every time Kirchhofer has done it, he's done it really well.
Brilliant. He hasn't even waited for turn 9 and 10 this time. He's done it halfway around the lap. That's how confident he is. And Kirchhofer has checked out and left Dennis Marshall in his wake. I just don't think Marshall has got the acceleration required to stay with him. Juan Pereira, Mathieu Chaminade in 4th place. Albert Costa-Balboa, Dries Vanthoor, Jesse Krohn, Christopher Mies. They round out the top 8. Here we go across the line. Look at the gap already.
Yes, Kirchhofer using all the horses available to him in that number 77 colourway car, and he is in that P1 position. We're looking back at our P2 driver Dennis Marshall in the Audi then. Dennis Marshall, what has he got to take to Kirchhofer? I think Marshall is going to have to do it on strategy. It's going to have to be when the pit window opens. The pit window has been moved. Drive-through penalty for car 32. Dries Vanthoor. That's a shame, isn't it? So Dries Vanthoor for that incident, as we see a challenge. Dave's so fed up, he's taking his headphones off and stormed off. So Clemens Schmidt going head-to-head with the number 4 car, being driven by Patrick Niederhauser. So that's a challenge for position for 10th place. Oh, welcome back. Clemens Schmidt through and taking that place away from Patrick Niederhauser into 10th place. Ahead of him is Maxi Book. So a lot of fighting still for positions. It is very busy further down the track there. I think that's a tough call. I think that's a hard call, to be fair, because both Backler and Vanthoor, they were trading paint, weren't they? Both of them, but there we are. I don't want to be a race to it.
I think they've got views that we don't have. They must have judged it was serious, because they could have given him the lesser penalty box if they knew it wasn't serious. And here we go. Pit window open. In comes Jesse Krohn from Nick Levely, and also Maxi Book from Raffaele Not yellow.
This could be a very, very good move by Jesse Krohn and the team.
Absolutely.
To bring this car in and go for, because undercuts, overcuts all play a part in this. So in comes the car of Jesse Krohn. And Nick Yellowly, the BMW M6 GT3 car, we know what power that car has got. So here comes Nick Yellowly, sprinting, athletic-like around the back of the car, supporting Jesse Krohn. Well, not so much supporting him, was dragging him out of the car, and Yellowly is in the car. Brian is doing all the calculations on the timing screen and the pit windows as we speak. So we have Kirchhofer and Marshall and Pereira and Chamonix, because Ian has come, that BMW.
An incident between Sven Muller and the number 75 of Christian Engelhardt is under investigation as somebody goes wide, and that is Albert Costa Balboa. So Balboa, has he got a problem or has he just gone wide? I think he's just gone wide. So Balboa, who we thought was going to be a contender for a podium here, surrendering a load of places, dropping down the order. So bad luck for him.
Yeah, very much so. That has cost him dearly. Now, we didn't see exactly how that happened. Perhaps we will in replay. So cars beginning to come in. Right, here comes the replay then, Brian.
So riding on board with Albert Costa Balboa, you can see it is onto the gravel, so it's from Pereira, isn't it?
Yep.
It's from Pereira. So that's just no, it is Balboa.
I apologise.
No, it is.
I apologise.
Too many green Lamborghinis. So yes, Albert Costa Balboa onto the gravel next to Dries Vanthoor, who of course has got that drive-through penalty that he's going to have to serve. But it means that Costa Balboa will have lots of dirt and gravelised tyres into the pit lane. Comes Dries Vanthoor. Now I don't know if this is for the drive-through or for the mandatory stop. One of the two.
Well, he's on his drive-through. Yeah, he was on his way out of the pit lane. So I think that was the drive-through.
Oh right, okay. I haven't even seen him go through. So yeah, okay. And that was what he got the drive-through for.
Yeah.
And so spinning the climbs back the car. So here comes Vanthoor. And I think that was the drive-through. There's so much going on.
He's not mandatory stop in the
No, he hasn't. So into the pit lane comes the number 63 car. So that is Albert Costa Balboa handing over to Mirko Bortolotti.
Bortolotti now is going to have quite some work to do, isn't he?
Fire up for that. 99 car, that's Sven Muller handing over to Robert Renauer. Yes, Bortolotti has got his work cut out. Here comes Nick Yellowly in the BMW, and as you said, Dave, strategically, they want to use that BMW, the power of it, out on the open track.
He's got clear track ahead of him now, hasn't he?
There's Raffaele Marciello's taken over Maxi Book. So it's all changed. It'll take us a little bit of time before the pits window opens and we find out where everybody is. It's that confusing part of the race where some have pitted, some haven't. We're lapping, we're not lapping, and some drivers have forgotten to switch over their transponders. Whichever way, we'll let you know who's what and where. The 29 car, that is Oscar Mees handing over to Ricardo Fella, another talented driver in the junior category. It's a team effort, so it's Mees that gets out, and then he helps Ricardo Fella get buckled in, wishes him good luck. A little tap on the helmet maybe, who knows, and buckles him up, and in he goes. The car fires up into life. And there's a bit of advice from Carson there, and yeah, that's just drive like the wind is the translation of that one. And the engine fires up. Now the stopwatch is running. We've got a drive penalty. Car 99, Robert Renauer. So he's going to be paying for Sven Muller's pace, and that's been one car. So the 99 car, which was having a rubbish afternoon anyway, down in 17th place, is going to be relegated to somewhere near the back of the field. Once that drive-through penalty has been served, the stewards are working overtime this afternoon. And here is a replay of that pushing, and that was the Max Paul. So that is what caused Christian Engelhardt to go spinning. So he was the end of the train when the cars all got together. And the stewards...
No effect, wasn't it?
And I have to say, all credit to them for picking up on that and getting that sorted out. And Max Paul was a meat in the sandwich on that particular one. And he and the number 71 car has yet to come into the pits. But the 99 car is going to have to come back in after all the pain of going for a mandatory stop for the driver to change Bofield all again. for a drive-through penalty.
As you can see, it's Sven Muller that gets the drive-through penalty, as we pointed out, but it is Oliver now that's having to pay the price for it, isn't it?
Inherited the problem, right. The Marcus Winkelhock is handing over to Florian Spengler, another of the very experienced drivers in this race. So Florian Spengler in the car collection Motorsport Audi, and getting buckled up. And they've been in the wars a little bit this afternoon, showing in 11th place at the moment, but that will obviously change as this pit stop progresses. We've still got quite a few cars that still need to hit the top 10 cars. Logically haven't been into the pits yet, so there's about 10-12 cars that are still yet to pit. About halfway through the window, right? Yeah, I think something like 48, and the local time is 44, so yes, we're about 4 minutes left of this pit window, and give it a lap after that, and we'll actually find out who's leading this race. We think it's that one there, Marlon Kirchhofer hasn't been in, whether it's Dennis Marshall or Frank Pereira or Mathieu Jaminet or Clement Schmidt or Patrick Niederhauser.
It's a bit of a battle going on. Forgive me interrupting you here for P2. This is the closest Pereira has been to Marshall for a few laps.
And we know that Lamborghini has got the advantage on this particular track. The Audi has been so dominant at other circuits, but the Red Bull Ring doesn't really suit it as much. But look who's in fourth place still, nibbling away. Mathieu Jaminet, the SSR Performance Porsche, is just always there, picking up the points, picking up the wins as well. But Pereira turning the heat up on Dennis Marshall. Now the team choose to bring Pereira into the pit early to try and get the undercut.
If it was me, that's what I would do, but of course they will cover that. Marshall's team presumably will be thinking about that as well, and Medtronic Racing will be thinking about actually covering that off, because we are running out of time for the pit window. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw Kirchhofer, Marshall and Pereira and Jaminet all in at the conclusion of this lap. They could probably do one more, but that would be it, I think.
There's only about 2.5 minutes left on this window, so yes, 2 laps would be a bit of a push, but they could potentially do it. Surely Pereira is going to peel into the pits as they come round to complete this lap. There's our leader. What's he going to do? Marshall will be handing over to Kim Louis Schramm, another of the up-and-coming superstars in GT racing. Right, that's the driver now for the drive-through, and here comes Frank Pereira and Mathieu Jaminet. So Jaminet handing over to Ammermuller, Pereira handing over to Niken.
So Kirchhofer and Marshall have stayed out. They're going to leave it to the very last minute to do their mandatory pit stops.
There's nothing like leaving it to the last minute, and don't miss your pit entrance, whatever you do, because you really will be in trouble if you miss the pit window. But in they come. So the SSR Performance Porsche, they are so strong. They are just always there. Here's Ammermuller going to practically drag Mathieu Jaminet out onto the pavement. Get out of the way. And number 19, that's Frank Pereira handing over to Rolf Niken, and helping him to get buckled up in the GRT Racing Lamborghini, which has been so strong, not just this weekend, but last time out in Oschersleben as well. That car bursts into line, and now it's all down to the man on the stopwatch. Don't mess this one up, otherwise you're going to be visiting the penalty box.
And we saw a number of shortcuts on the mandatory pit stops yesterday, didn't we? The shortcut at the time, and if you even get it a second wrong, you're in strife, aren't you?
Yeah, you are, and so easy to do as well, because you're down. When you see how close these cars are on the track, it's down to the fractions of a second. Here comes Nick Yellerly. So Yellerly, currently in 11th place, but that is changing rapidly as the remaining cars pit. Out of the pits we come. It's Kirchhofer. He's leading the way into the pits. He comes. This was his last opportunity to do it, and he's going to be handing over to Jeffrey Schmidt. No pressure on Jeffrey Schmidt then. Marshall is already in, handing over to Kim Louis Schramm, and that will be the last of the pit lane. People coming in now. You can see Sean Gounon coming in. And also Christopher Haster, Daniel Karlovitz and Maximilian Paul.
Now this is going to be critical.
It really is. Timing is everything. Sean Gounon is handing over to Igor Velilko. And it's weird, the franticness of the race and then the peace and silence in the pits. Black and white flag to car number 4, so that's just a warning to, that'll be Yusuf Awega, who's taken over from Patrick Niederhauser, and that's just for pushing another car off the track, so nothing too serious there. The car burst into life here, and we are getting ready, so this has been the leader. Marvin Kirchhofer handed over to Jeffrey Schmidt. Jeffrey Schmidt with it all to do now. Out of the pit lane, the cars start to come.
So Jeffrey Schmidt, then one mean racer, and he's got a brilliant car underneath him. Right, here you can see the Lamborghini rounding turn 10. The P1 and P2 car pre-pit stops then, making their way up the pit lane now on the exit to the pit lane. Bear in mind the others have got speed already banked in the cars. It's going to be quite a run up to turn 3. Of course, the Corvette and also the Audi need to try very temperature into the tyres. But this, I think, has really advanced the BMW of Nick Yellerly into, P4?
Yeah, a brilliant driver. We said that getting that undercut early on was going to pay dividends, and that's exactly what's happened, using the horsepower of the BMW as Raffaele Marciello and Daniel Ricciardo, wrong sport, Ricciardo Bella, and I can't have it like that, but it's been a long afternoon. Raffaele Marciello, so Ricciardo Bella to the outside, and Raffaele Marciello on the inside.
Danny Rickman makes his debut in the GT Masters. Fantastic. What would that be like? Right, on board. I love this splitter cam. We can watch the action unfold in front of us. There is a Ricciardo Bella, Mr. R. Bella to you. Then looking at the back end of this Mercedes-Benz. Compared to motocross by land, motorsport Audi, dust being picked up then as you try and take every single piece of car, like a little bit of the AstroTurf curves and a bit of gravel as well. In replay, looking on the back splitter cam. It was a bold and ambitious move, and just a little side fight there to make sure that you knew the line coming through. Love it, absolutely love it.
Well, I've had a little bit of a lie down, and I'm back in the room. Mikael Ammola up to 5th place, so they've done pretty well out of all the pit stops. Raffaele Marciello 6th, Ricciardo Bella, and Bella and Marciello going at it again, and in the background is Marco Bortolotti. Look at this, they're running side by side. Group has two, planted to the floor. Now Marco Bortolotti is going to give Raffaele Marciello a helping hand. Getting behind him in this slipstream will actually help him slightly under braking, and Ricciardo Bella is relegated by the Lamborghini Huracan. Now he keeps going. Marco Bortolotti on Raffaele Marciello.
Brilliant driving from Marco Bortolotti here. He forced his nose onto the inside line, which is going to give him the perfect line for turn number 4. Marco Bortolotti, fair play though to Marco, trying to hold on. He dips a wheel into the gravel. That will have cost him some time. So Marco Bortolotti should have this slam dunk done.
Well, the last time we saw Raffaele Marciello, he had green hair, and it clearly wasn't painted into the GRT Grasser team. He'll be changing a different colour next time we see him, because he has just been mullered by Marco Bortolotti, who's taken 2 spots at once. I can't help feeling that Ricciardo Bella getting behind actually gave him an aerodynamic advantage as well. And behind them is the 91 car, David Yarn, who has been thereabouts. Well, that car's been thereabouts all afternoon. So the big loser in that, Raffaele Marciello with the green hair.
Brilliant observation. Jeffrey Schmidt is leading from Tim Lewis down, Robert Michael, and then of course it is Nick Yellerly ahead of Mikael Ammola. And Ammola is not going to be happy with P5. Bortolotti, of course, now up to P6. Marciello and Bella losing out. Car number 70 and number 29 have got to give the positions back. Marciello has got to give that position back to Ricciardo Bella.
It says to change positions. I'm wondering whether it was Bella that was going to give it back to Marciello. Whichever it is, the stewards have been looking at that. I know it is. Is Bella going to make the move on Marciello? Whichever way, the stewards have said that manoeuvre was not legal and they need to swap the positions back. Depends on which part of the race they're talking about. Yeah. So the leader, Jeffrey Schmidt, not pulling away from Kim Louis Schramm as well as Arne Kirchhofer had done, it has to be said. Kim Louis Schramm keeping him well within sight and coming under pressure from Rolf Nyken. Nick Yellerly, the big winner in the pit stops because that undercut, and that's David Yarn getting a little bit airborne to the gravel. I don't think he even lifted his 4th accelerator.
He bounced up through there, didn't he? David Yarn.
Brilliant stuff, and David Yarn, one of the real characters of our sport, and doing a great job there in 9th place, and has been very consistent. The Team Use Sportwagen Technique Porsche has been finishing in the top 10 in every race so far, looking good to keep that record going. There's third place, and that is Rolf van Eiken.
Yeah, Rolf van Eiken is just trying to reel in Kim Louis Schramm here, isn't he? Look at Mikko Ammermuller. You can almost sense that Ammermuller is throwing absolutely everything at this. He's not going to be happy with P5. Now, here we go then with this. Marciello, who is P7.
Ricardo Fella once again moving to the outside. This is proper entertainment. The two drivers getting their elbows out, and now Marciello getting very wide on the corner. Here comes Ricardo Fella coming back. David Yarn is going to try and get involved. That little insertion really hasn't slowed him down anymore. It's Mercedes versus Audi versus Porsche. Are they going to go straight abreast? Not yet, maybe in a bit. Marciello finally has to succumb. It's Ricardo Fella who is through and into 7th place.
Wow, what a fight that's going on, P7, P8 and P9. So now Ricardo Fella then ahead of Marciello, and then David Yarn, as you say, and it matters whether it's on the grass, gravel or the tarmac. Boy, as he does the power and some pace and some nerves of steel wherever he puts the car. He is right those two ahead of him. He's got to find a way by, hasn't he? Jeffrey Schmidt has got a 1 second gap over Kim Louis Schramm at the front of the race, and Rolf van Eiken doing a really good job in P3.
Look at David Yarn, he looks very quick indeed. If anything, that little airport moment has sped him up a little bit, and Raffaele Marciello not looking particularly secure in that 7th place, and Yarn picking up a slipstream up towards turn 1. He'll get as close as he can out of 1, and then that flat out kink that is turn 2, and up the steep hill to turn 3. It's going to be Merca versus Porsche, and is Yarn close enough to do anything about it? Doesn't look like he's close enough to Marciello.
It's on this part of the track where the Mercedes is, it's able to pull away. It's got the torque, it's got the traction, hasn't it? And it's more the twisty sections of the track where it plays into the hands of the Porsche a little bit more of David Yarn, in my opinion.
Then just seeing a bit further back, Sebastian Ash in 14th place, Hugo Sassa in the number 71 car in 15th, Florence Spengler in there as well. The fights are going on all the way down through the order. This is the one we're interested in though. It's Raffaele Marciello behind Ricardo Fella, ahead of David Yarn. And there is the youngest driver in the field, Hugo Sassa, behind Sebastian Ash, and also Florian Spengler there, another experienced driver. So the young versus the old, the experienced versus the less experienced. Fossil. No fossils involved here. The leading fossil, just out of interest, is Rolf van Eiken in the Gentleman's Trophy, the number 19 car. He runs 3rd on the road, 1st in category. The leading junior, Kim Louis Schramm, 2nd on the road, 1st in category.
Hey Rolf, I apologise for my colleagues. It's Schmidt, Schramm and Eiken, Yellerly, Ammermuller, Bortolotti then the top 6. Then it's Ricardo Fella ahead of Marciello. And there you can see, look at this, Marciello has really lost out here because he is within the clutches of David Yarn. Now there's Igor Vililko, Maite Norman and Josef Arriga. What a race we're enjoying. It's had everything. It's had race stopping, red flag, safety car, tellings off like you would not believe from Sven Stopper. And what have we got? But 12.5 minutes of the race remaining. What a shame.
It's blown past. I haven't actually seen the penalty box used yet, but I'm not kind of willing that one to happen. Jeffrey Schmidt has not pulled away at the front as quickly as I thought he might. Martin Kirchhofer really was opening up the gap very quickly. It might be just that the tyres are worn. The car is obviously got to be preserved as it goes through. Jeffrey Schmidt not as experienced as Martin Kirchhofer, but that's a bit of a close call really. There he goes through the picture, well ahead still of Kim Louis Schramm, and as long as Kim Louis Schramm is defending from Rolf van Eiken, he's not going to be doing anything about the leader. As Rolf van Eiken looks like he's winding himself up for an attack.
Just 3/10 between P2 and P3 at the moment, so I think you're right here. I think Rolf van Eiken is going to go for it here. So Kim Louis Schramm then under threat from Rolf van Eiken in the Lamborghini Huracan, the Audi then. Both those cars run wide, but so much neater was Rolf van Eiken. That run onto the grass will be just enough for an Eiken potentially to run him up to turn number 1, and then carrying all the speed he can through turn number 1. This section of the track where the Lamborghini Huracan is very, very strong, surely Rolf van Eiken will be able to have a go here they go through the kink, which is turn number 2. It's not a turn, really, it is just a kink. And then into turn 3, but he's not quite as close as I thought he might be able to get, Brian.
You can't help feeling that with if he couldn't seize that opportunity, Ken is going to struggle to get past, because if you look here, Kimberly Schramm goes onto the grass in his tyres, which are slick and will be picking up all the dirt, all the grass. When he got to turn 1, he wouldn't have had as much grip as he might have had, and he still held off Rolf van Eiken. So I'd say that would be reassuring for Kimberly Schramm, not so reassuring for Mikael Ammermuller, the championship leader, who has Mirko Bortolotti breathing down his neck. And Mirko Bortolotti, in that powerful Lamborghini, is turning the heat up on him too. You can see Nick Yellerly running on his own. Ahead of him, Rolf van Eiken and Kim Louis Schramm.
And Rolf van Eiken's not giving up on this. Van Eiken's going to go for another go. What's the lap we saw just a moment ago? A rehearsal for Rolf van Eiken. Well, we're about to find out as he shows his face to the inside of the Kim Louis Schramm Audi, carrying as much speed as they can around this roller coaster that is the Red Bull Ring circuit there. Kim Louis Schramm's altogether neater and tidier through turn number 10, but Eiken again just looking at the inside here, trying to harry and worry the Kim Louis Schramm. They both take maximum speed through turn number 1. And now the long drag as Mirko Bortolotti on the inside of Mikael Ammermuller here.
This is the championship leader, Mikael Ammermuller. This is exciting stuff going round turn 2. The cars side by side rubbing against each other. This is significant. Both drivers are trying to get to the top of the championship. Of course, Mikael Ammermuller is there already, but Mirko Bortolotti in close contention. The battle for 5th, under braking. Bortolotti has taken that place away. Mikael Ammermuller probably deciding discretion is the better part of valor, because if it ended up in the gravel trap, that would have done his championship no good whatsoever. But the Lamborghini out-dragging the Porsche up towards turn 3, and Lamborghini in front of Porsche. 5th place goes to Mirko Bortolotti. Can you do anything about the BMW of Nick Yellerly ahead of him with about 9 minutes of this race remaining?
He got that overtake done even before they got to turn 3, hadn't he? Just positioned himself on the inside. He was always going to have the gun line then, and look, Ammermuller is defenceless now. He's opened up a couple of car lengths as the Bortolotti car, and here it is in replay. Look at that dive to the inside of Mikael Ammermuller. Racing room left by Ammermuller. They're both hugely experienced drivers, of course, and it was here critically where he got sufficient momentum, forward momentum, to keep that inside line for turn 3. Ammermuller trying to close the door, but he's always firm but fair, you know, and Rolf van Eiken still behind Kim Louis Schramm. I can't help but feel that maybe the best opportunity that Rolf van Eiken had has gone.
Yeah, you think that if he couldn't get past him when Kim Louis Schramm had made that mistake, that he's probably not going to get past him at all. Mikael Ammermuller playing the long game. He knows there's a championship at stake here. They are in the box seats to defend their championship title successfully, to become the first team to ever do that. And not getting in battles that you're not going to win is an important factor of winning a championship, knowing when to say, okay, we'll let him go. And Mirko Bortolotti clearly has the legs on that Porsche. He's homing in on Nick Yellerly. Not sure he's going to be able to do anything about it. In fact, the first 6 cars are looking fairly solid in the positions they're in, because Rolf van Eiken still can't find a way past Kim Louis Schramm. So Kim Louis Schramm running on his own. He's about 1.1 second behind Jeffrey Schmidt. So Schmidt just opening up that gap a little bit, 1.069 it says on the graphic there. So a little under 1.1 second. It doesn't look as though Schmidt is under any threat whatsoever at the moment.
I think he's just managing this perfectly, isn't he? He can probably up the game a little bit more if he feels he needs to, but keeping a margin of 1.1 or thereabouts is adequate, isn't it? And to be truthful, Kim Louis Schramm is really rather too busy with Rolf van Eiken, isn't he? And here comes Rolf van Eiken again, getting very close to Kim Louis Schramm on the exit of turn 10. And this is as close as Rolf van Eiken has been to Kim Louis Schramm. But again, as they run through turn 1, they take as much of the outside going into turn number 1 as they possibly can. Schramm has got enough to see off the charge from Van Eiken. Van Eiken has really tried. There's only a couple of places where he can make it really viable, and unfortunately Kim Louis Schramm has got the measure of it and puts the car exactly where Rolf van Eiken would rather it would not be.
It's interesting because contrary to what I was saying, it seems to me that the Lamborghini is actually strongest during the windier part of the sections 2 and 3, and that the Audi seems to open up the gap on the pit straight and up to turn 3.
But really interestingly, and I've just been watching this as we can see contact
Hugo Sassa getting involved with Janis Fitcher, and that will be the number 3 of Sebastian Ash, who's also got involved. Sorry, it was Thomas Piney, not Janis Fitcher, in the Porsche. Oh dearie me, that was just a bit of clumsy braking into the corner, and you've got to feel for Sebastian Ash, because he was very much the innocent party in that. The safety car, the one car getting together, Hugo Sassa in the wars, and Sebastian Ash, the 2-times champion, is left pointing in the wrong direction. Right, back to the lead.
Safety car, Brian.
Oh,
forgive me.
Yes, safety car. So I'm surprised that. So clearly, Sebastian Ash is stranded.
Now, I was going to say, just before we got into that situation, which you called absolutely perfectly, I'm terribly impressed. What you were saying about Rolf Nijken and the Lamborghini being good in certain places, and it's surprising you, it's only true of the Nijken car, because the Bortolotti car is still as strong where we expect it to be. It's interesting how both the cars are behaving differently, but is that driving styles?
It might be driving styles, it could be just the way they're set up, because of course they do have an element of downforce that they can control and adjust on these cars. Do you set it up for the windy part? Do you set it up for the long straights? And that, I guess, is going to be down to each individual driver. We're looking again at the situation, the incident that has caused the safety car. It was the number 75, which has been driven by Thomas Piney, that gets together with Hugo Sassa, and Sebastian Ash, the innocent party in all of it, gets caught out and spun around. His car has become stranded. Now, Jeffrey Schmidt did have getting on for about 1.1 second lead. That will be eaten away. But one thing we have discovered about that Corvette, it's pretty good at restarts.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Now, I don't think it'll be a long time in recovering the stricken number 3 car. What a great shame for Sebastian Ash and Daniel Kylewitz, of course, as you have said, both previous GT Masters champions. The car will be recovered, and we'll get the safety car back in. Also, the Hugo Sassa car, the number 71 T3 ADAC Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan, shared with Maxi Paul, is in, and race is over.
That's a steep learning curve for Hugo Sassa, the youngest driver in the field. Came out of GT4 last year, and the 17-year-old is learning the ropes, very excited about being part of GT Masters this year, and has had quite a difficult start to the season. Best has been a 15th place along with Max Paul, but we'll learn from that. We'll come back stronger. One of these new up-and-coming charging drivers that we're seeing pretty well in every class at the moment, and he will come back stronger from that, we have no doubt. So the Sebastian Ash car is being removed. If you look at some slow-mo shots of cars bumping over the curbing, and very shortly we will be getting ready for the final 2.5 minutes of racing, because can you believe it? We're getting into the closing stages of this race. I've lost count of how many yellow flags, safety cars, red flags we've had. The Callaway competition team must wonder what they've got to do to get this race won, because every time they get out in front, they seem to slow the race down again.
Safety car is coming in this lap. It's going to be a dash for cash, isn't it? When the safety car is coming, we're going to have about 1.5 minutes left on the clock, so it is going to be a real scream, isn't it? Now, Schmidt, so far, as you have rightly said, the Corvette seems to have been able to manage the restarts absolutely perfectly. Of course, Jeffrey Schmidt, what he's going to do is back up Kim Louis Schramm and Rolf Nijken, Nick Yellerly, Mirko Bortolotti, Mikael Ammermuller. Can't help but think that this may play into the hands of Bortolotti here. Yellerly's going to have to be on his mark here.
He really is. This is the first one of the restarts that Jeffrey Schmidt has had, indeed, because all the others have been Nick Viso first. So we're interested to see whether his tactic of just hitting it quite a long way before turn 9 is the same. What he doesn't want to do is catch the safety car, of course, so he's going to back them up at the moment. But as predicted, I think that Yellerly and Bortolotti have got some business still to do. Mikael Ammermuller is probably not second with 6th place either. Here we go, he's hit the accelerator, nice and early.
So he has taken a leaf, hasn't he, out of Marvin Kirkhofer's book. Look at that, he's done it properly, hasn't he?
Yeah, and that is already getting up to the kind of gap he had before the safety car came out. So we're going to keep our eyes on the drivers behind. Out of turn 10 comes Schmidt, and we'll look and see what it is when he crosses the timing line. But Kim Louis Schramm is 6 tenths behind already. Now look at this, Nick Yellerly looking to the inside of Rolf Nijken. So he's in a GRT Grassa Lamborghini sandwich. He's going to come under pressure from Bortolotti, but he's putting the heat on in Nijken. Can Yellerly get a spot on the podium?
going to try and get the drive for penalty, but I really got a clumsy move that brought out the safety car. Here comes Nick Yellowly then, and on the inside is the number 19 car.
The GRT Classic cars closing ranks and looking to railroad Yellowly. Yellowly's a wise old fox. He manages to out-drag them out of turn 3 towards turn 4, and now he is coming under threat. Bortolotti is putting the heat onto Nick Yellowly. Fantastic stuff. There's a gap on the inside of it. Now through goes Nick Yellowly. Gives him the squeeze. Get out of the way. And 3 abreast. So almost Bortolotti getting both of them.
Oh, and look at this. Through on the inside now. You're absolutely right. I mean, Yellowly is right in the middle of this sandwich, and it he appears for the moment to have seen off both of them.
And look at Mikael Lammermuller. He can see this unfolding. It's a bit of GRC Classic. Is it team racing? I'm not sure you can call it that. But they end up ganging up on him. He's feeling bullied because they're out dragging him as they go towards the corner. But Yellowly has that position. Can he put a bit of gap in there? And Mikael Lammermuller was rather hoping they might all get together and he could come sneaking through. Ricardo Fella and Raffaele Marciello behind are also keeping a watch, and Fella going deep into the corner, picking up some dirt, no harm done. Now Mirko Bortolotti is turning the heat onto the Niken. Teammates? What teammates?
This is the last lap of this extraordinary ADAC GT Masters race.
Didn't even notice that. That's very exciting stuff going on. There's every place being played for. Look at Marciello, Raffaele Marciello and David Yarn. So Marciello making his move for 8th place and running side by side into the corner under braking. And Marciello braking very late, goes deep. He's going to lose places to Igor Valilko. He just about gathers it up. David Yarn holds on to that position. That is 8th place. And I saw the Lamborghini was going slowly. It wasn't. It was just a camera angle. But for 1 minute, it looked like Robin Iken was struggling. But look at this behind Marciello coming through. He has never won. He's scared to get his elbows out. He's onto the gravel and he's lost a place also to Igor Valilko. So maybe ambition overcoming a little bit here. And Marciello dropping back. At the front, Jeffrey Schmidt leads the way. There are points still to be grabbed, and look, this is the Yusuf Awega car going on the inside of Mike David Altman. So they're still challenging positions right down in 11th place. And Lucas Sandra treads behind, but here we go. A man who has led the car that's led every lap in its race. Jeffrey Schmidt in the Callaway competition Corvette, who took over from Marvin Kirchhofer. He wins the race for the ADAC GT Masters, race 2 at the Red Bull Ring.
Oh, I have a strepsil friend. Jeffrey Schmidt, Louis Schramm, and Nick Yellowly then cross the line and take the P1, P2 and P3. Well, the audience here have been delivering a fantastic GT Masters race then, which has had everything. Penalties, safety cars, red flags, you name it. Cars in the gravel, grass, tarmac, and wow, delay right at the start of the race as well. The winner, Jeffrey Schmidt and Marvin Kirchhofer then in the number 77 car. Brilliant job done. And there you can see the celebrations inside the garage. And this actually is in the, there you can see the Callaway congratulations being offered. We were just for a moment then also in the garages of Rutronic Racing. Look at this, Marciello.
He's not scared to get down dirty.
He really isn't, is he? Steaming through, but I feel a bit for David Yarn here, you know, because it's great that we get it in super slow-mo as well. This all happened on the last lap of the race where everyone was jostling for the final points that they could potentially and possibly bank. And Jeffrey Schmidt then crossing the line and taking the checkered flag ahead of Kim Louis Schramm.
Well, we had to wait a bit for this race, didn't we, with that red flag early on, but it was worth the wait. It was very exciting. The latter part of that race was absolute classic GT Masters. It's what we've come to love and expect from GT Masters racing. Action down to the absolute last minute. And yes, I need to lie down there. So just to summarise, it's Jeffrey Schmidt from Kim Louis Schramm, Nick Yellowly in the top 3, and of course Kirchhofer and Marshall and Crone were the co-drivers on those. Then it's Bortolotti, Costa Balboa, Niken from Pereira, Lammermuller, the championship leaders, and Chamonix in 6th place. That's healthy points. Ricardo Fella, Christopher Meade, and the rest of the cars you can see scrolling through the leading junior driver, Kimberly Schramm, who finished in second, the leading trophy driver, Rolf Nyken, who finished fifth. A lot of DNFs in that. That was about getting on for half the field who didn't actually make it to the flag.
You're absolutely right.
And our thoughts go to the TopSport WRT team, who have an awful lot of rebuilding to do, / replacing before the next round of that Mercedes. So congratulations from Marvin Kirchhofer to Jeffrey Schmidt. The first to congratulate him, and they congratulate each other because it really was a team effort. Pretty dominant for the Callaway competition Corvette, wouldn't you say?
Proves that car is awesome, isn't it? Tell you what, you didn't park that very well, did you?
He parked next to me in Tesco's the other day because I've got dents in my door now.
So there are discussions going on, both of them doing an excellent job there. Of course, Dennis Marshall was straight in there to congratulate Kim Louis Schramm. Doubtless the congratulations being offered from Jesse Krohn to Nick Yellerly as well.
I have to say, you can never discount Nick Yellerly and Jesse Krohn, can you? If it wasn't for that DNF yesterday, they would be probably leading the championship by now, I think. They're 21 points down, but they have got stronger and stronger and stronger.
And 21 points with still a lot of racing to be done in this championship year.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So this was race 4 of a 14-race season. So by my complex calculations, that means we've got 10 more races to go. So plenty of points still up for grabs. Of course, it's 25 points for a win, but there's also points to be earned in qualifying as well. You get 3 points for a pole position. So all to play for here, and anyone who thinks that Mikael Lammer and Mathieu Jaminet are going to get it easy are very much mistaken.
So not all the drivers looking as happy as some then as they make their way down the pit lane here, and of course that's the story of motor racing, isn't it? You have great times and you have some times that are quite not so great perhaps, but there we have it. The drivers will be seen on the podium then, Schmidt, Schramm and Yellerly, along with their respective teammates of course, and there you can see water being taken on and masks worn, and then media duties to be attended to before heading up towards the podium.
So it's taken a little while to run. It's been a bit of a slow burner, hasn't it? But it was worth it in the end. Definitely worth the waiting. And thank you for sticking around with us despite that lengthy red flag that we had. I hope you were suitably entertained by what you saw. I know that we certainly were. And the Callaway Competition Corvette had to work hard for that, because every time they opened up a gap and got in front, there'd be another yellow flag, safety car, whatever it was. So a long race, but a thoroughly entertaining race. And I'd say big credit to Kim Louis Schramm and Dennis Marshall, who I think have almost outperformed the car with that second place. There's the winner, Jeffrey Schmidt and Marvin Kirchhofer in the Callaway Competitions Corvette. That was one of them anyway. And they took victory on this beautiful afternoon at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg.
Indeed so, and we can see some of the emotional images inside the garages then, and that's all part of it, because driving the car is only one part of it. There's a huge team behind the scenes that makes sure that everything works, and there you can see the drivers are able to enjoy the fruits of everyone's labours, though of course they do have to pedal the machines, which I'm not for one moment insinuating is an easy job, far from it, but a very, very entertaining race, full of drama and full of excitement. And there you can see, this is the points haul now. Mathieu Jaminet and Mikael Lammer were on 72 points, 16 ahead of Moto Bortolotti and Albert Balboa. Then it's Nick Yellerly and Jesse Krohn, they're 21 points down, and Maxi Berg and Raffaele Martiello in P4 on 48 points. But with such a big points haul available in each race, heck of a lot still to play for, and of course there are circuits that suit some cars somehow better than others, but I have to say, over and above all, the cars are all so competitive. They've got a balance of performance nailed.
And you look at the first 5, and one DNF will make the difference between first and fifth place in the points championship. Is that close?
You've only got to look here, look, you know, first 4 places across 4 different manufacturers.
Yeah, just shows that they really have nailed balance of performance. It really is very impressive. It was very much a team sport, and you have the ups and the downs. I'm just reminded of 2019, the Callaway competition crew, the Corvette at Hockenheim on the opening lap of the first race had a monstrous accident, almost wrote the colour off. They spent the entire night rebuilding it. Race 2 on the Sunday, on the opening lap of the race, they had a monstrous accident and wrote the car off. And you just think, when you can bounce back from things like that, that is what makes you a championship winner. And the Callaway competition crew come back stronger and stronger every time, and they've really done it this time round with a win here at the Red Bull Ring. There's Nick Yellerly and Jesse Krohn running for Schubert Motorsport. And Nick Yellerly was looking good to win, to successfully defend the Nürburgring 24-hour title last weekend, and then a mechanical issue took him out of the race in the latter stages, and he could not hide his disappointment in that.
I'm sure. He's a great guy, and as you and I both know, Nick Yellerly has spent time with us on the air, and he's always very willing and giving of his time, and passes on that experience. He's a truly super guy.
A driver who's very experienced and has been the development driver for the Racing Point Formula One team. I believe he's still involved with Aston Martin, a very sought after pilot. You can see why, because he has been absolutely on it for every race, all 4 of the races this season so far. And along with Jesse Krohn, who is a very useful pilot himself, have done well and come back for a P3, and just looking at my grid to see where they actually started, it was down in 7th place. So on a field as competitive as this, that takes a bit of doing at the top end.
It's a forward trajectory, isn't it?
It is. So we look on at Kimberly Schramm,
Dennis Marshall. I feel terribly old now because I can remember Dennis Marshall in really junior racing, and always someone that was good for a chat, always super guy. So Nick Yellerly to the left-hand side there, and then it's 30.3. Yes, a Krohn. Thanks, Nick, for maintaining the English for us.
Yes, I was just wondering what they were going to say. So Dennis Marshall, of course, has been with Rutronic for a while. Kimberly Schramm has moved across to Rutronic this year. Carrie Schreiner was accompanying Dennis Marshall last year, and she's moved on to other things. So Dennis Marshall getting used to his new teammate. Kimberly Schramm, a very useful pilot, who was with Montaplast by land last year, and has moved across to Rutronic. So good work by everybody, that's what we'd say. And we're getting ready for the podium presentation. And again, swapping notes, but we're ready to see them on the podium. And I think all 3 of those pilots will be very happy, or all 6 of those pilots will be happy with their work this afternoon.
I think you're right. So they're all taking on board some water from, of course, the BWT as we make the ADAC GT Masters a one-use plastic forbidden zone where all the BWT bottles are in use here, and we're trying to really support that cause. And you'll have seen the graphics on the screen about the BWT involvement with the ADAC GT Masters, which is very important, Brian, and raises very important money.
It does, and BWT and ADAC have jointly donating €4 to the Be-Water mission for every lap completed by every car on the track, and that soon builds up, and they're building wells in primarily rural areas of the Gambia and Tanzania to ensure clean drinking water. So here we go, it's the podium presentation, the Callaway competition crew, and they take the top step of the podium, Jeffrey Schmidt and Marvin Kirchhofer. Second up, Kimberly Schramm, Dennis Marshall. I think they will be delighted with that. And then third up, onto the grid. A good recovery after a disappointing day yesterday. Nick Yellerly and Jesse Krohn in the Schubert Motorsport BMW. The final year for that big M6 car before it's replaced by the M4. So we have a representative from Callaway. You were about to tell us who that is. You normally recognise anybody, don't you?
Not going to embarrass you by so doing. Far from it. So we're just about ready for the podium, and that means National Anthem to play out.
Und natürlich brauchen die Sieger auch Pokale. Aus den Händen von Hermann Thompson,
national anthem plays out, and there's Hermann Tomczyk. Welcome back, the outgoing sport president of the ADAC, and good to see him still in the rounds and presenting the trophies. Lovely trophies now too. The gold ball on the Blitz.
Für die Audi-Piloten Dennis Martin und Kim Lewis-Schaap.
Now that's what I like, this formal jacket on. Mr. Andreas Demel.
I've never seen you without a formal jacket on.
Well, there you go. There you go.
And a bit of a gap while they look for some more trophies out the back. Here we go, come on. So that's where the second place guys, the Rutronic team, Kim Lewis-Schramm. That is decoration for the mantelpiece. And the Schubert Motorsport trophy cabinet must be bulging at the seams by now.
They truly are lovely trophies here.
They are.
They've always done a really good job, in my opinion, in terms of the awards that they give.
Andreas Themel, dem Vizebürgermeister von Spielberg.
So a trophy for Callaway competition. Another team that will have a bulging trophy cabinet. They've been around since the beginning of the Callaway competition crew. A post of photographs, and then the Schumacher champagne will be liberally distributed. There's a reminder of the point standings.
Liberally liberated.
You can see how close it is. Jaminet and Amamola have had that points lead closed down. And Mirko Bortolotti and Alba-Costa Balboa, I have to say, in some ways, a bit of a surprise package, because although they're strong, have always been there or thereabouts, they really are making a charge for the championship this year. The celebration starts. The race is done. It took a while to get there, but we got there in the end. Race 4 of a 14-race season for the ADAC GT Masters.